For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed cornerstone of global trade, shaping international policies, economic sanctions, and the very fabric of global finance. Its dominance has allowed the United States unparalleled leverage over the global economy. But what if this reign of the dollar is now being challenged like never before? Enter BRICS, a coalition of 5 rising powers: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. While the alliance started with economic cooperation in mind, it has evolved into a formidable force with a shared goal: de-dollarization, a strategy to reduce global dependence on the US dollar. Recent developments, including escalating tensions with the United States, have set the stage for a geopolitical and economic showdown that could reshape global power dynamics. As Donald Trump's presidency unfolded, his hardline policies on trade added fuel to the fire. His 100% tariff threats on BRICS nations marked a turning point, prompting swift responses from member states. Now, the world watches as these powerhouses engage in a high-stakes economic chess match. Could this signal the beginning of a new global financial order? The foundations of dollar dominance. For decades, the dollar has served as the global reserve currency, facilitating international trade and financial transactions. This dominance has enabled the U.S. to wield enormous influence, whether through trade policies or imposing sanctions on nations. But this dominance comes at a cost, particularly for emerging economies heavily reliant on the dollar. Recognizing this vulnerability, BRICS nations began devising strategies to challenge the dollar's supremacy. Their efforts include establishing alternative financial systems, fostering local currency trade, and promoting digital innovation. These moves aim not only to empower their economies, but also to create a more balanced and equitable global financial system. Trump's tariffs, a catalyst for change. From day one, Donald Trump's America First policy sent shockwaves through the global economic and political landscape. Aimed at protecting U.S. economic interests, it often took an aggressive stance, leaving no room for compromise. His administration's hardline tactics, particularly the tariff threats aimed at BRICS nations, delivered a clear and unwavering message. The United States would not tolerate challenges to its economic supremacy. BRICS, comprising Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, represented a growing coalition of emerging powers with ambitions to reshape the global financial order. Their efforts toward de-dollarization weren't just about economics. They signaled a seismic geopolitical shift. By reducing reliance on the US dollar in international trade, BRICS aimed to challenge the very foundation of America's global influence, its financial dominance. For Trump's administration, this wasn't merely an economic initiative. It was viewed as a direct threat to US hegemony. The prospect of other nations rallying behind BRICS to weaken the dollar's hold over global finance set alarm bells ringing in Washington. If successful, de-dollarization could erode the United States' ability to project power, impose sanctions, and maintain its standing as the world's economic leader. Trump's response was bold but polarizing. His use of tariffs, sanctions, and aggressive rhetoric sought to deter BRICS nations from advancing their shared agenda. Yet this hardline approach also raised critical questions. Was this strategy sustainable? Did it consider the growing resilience, unity, and long-term strategic planning of BRICS nations? Critics argue that the Trump administration underestimated the determination of BRICS to pursue their goals. By doubling down on confrontation, the U.S. risked pushing these nations closer together, inadvertently accelerating their de-dollarization efforts. The result was a deepening of economic and political ties within the bloc, and a shared resolve to counterbalance U.S. influence. In hindsight, Trump's approach may have achieved short-term gains, but failed to address the broader systemic shifts underway. BRICS' agenda wasn't just reactive, it was proactive, rooted in a vision of a multipolar world. While America sought to protect its dominance, BRICS nations were quietly building an alternative system, one step at a time. So, the question remains, was Trump's America First policy the right way to confront the challenges posed by BRICS? Or did it simply fuel the very momentum it sought to suppress? As history unfolds, the answers may shape not only the US-BRICS dynamic, but the future of global power itself. BRICS, a rising force. BRICS' strategy to reduce dollar dependence is multifaceted and ambitious. Here's how they're reshaping the financial landscape. The New Development Bank, NDB. The New Development Bank, NDB, was established in 2014 as a joint initiative by the BRICS nation. Its primary goal is to support infrastructure and sustainable development projects within these countries. By financing large-scale initiatives such as transportation networks, renewable energy installations, and water management systems, the NDB aims to address critical developmental challenges and improve the quality of life in member states. What sets the NDB apart from traditional institutions like the International Monetary Fund, IMF, or the World Bank is its operating philosophy. While the IMF and World Bank often work within a dollar-dominated financial system, the NDB emphasizes funding in local currencies. For example, if a renewable energy project is initiated in India, the NDB might provide funding in Indian rupees rather than US dollars. This approach significantly reduces the dependency on the dollar, thereby shielding member countries from currency exchange risks and the volatility of international markets. Furthermore, this local currency funding helps promote economic sovereignty among member nations by enabling them to manage financial transactions without being overly reliant on external, dollar-based financial systems. For instance, when Brazil constructs new highways with NDB assistance, using Brazilian real reduces the influence of external currency fluctuations on the project's budget and long-term costs. The NDB also focuses on inclusivity and sustainable development. It supports projects that align with the broader developmental goals of the United Nations, such as combating climate change, improving access to clean energy, and fostering economic resilience. Additionally, the bank has expanded its membership beyond the BRICS nations, welcoming countries like the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, and Bangladesh, thereby increasing its global influence. In summary, the NDB is more than just a development bank. It is a platform for empowering nations, promoting economic independence, and advancing sustainable development goals. Its innovative approach to funding and its commitment to reducing reliance on the dollar-based financial system make it a significant player in reshaping the global economic landscape. Bilateral trade agreements. BRICS nations are actively working to reduce their reliance on the US dollar in international trade. Instead, they are increasingly trading with each other using their local currencies. For example, China and Russia have established trade agreements where significant portions of their bilateral trade, such as oil, natural gas, and manufactured goods, are conducted in yuan, Chinese currency, and rubles, Russian currency, rather than dollars. This allows both nations to bypass the dollar and avoid currency exchange fees, making trade more efficient and less vulnerable to US sanctions. India and Brazil have also explored similar trade mechanisms. Recently, the two countries discussed settling trade in Indian rupees and Brazilian reals instead of defaulting to the dollar. For instance, when India imports soybeans or sugar from Brazil, these transactions could soon be conducted directly in their local currencies. This move is aimed at reducing dependency on the dollar, while strengthening economic ties within the BRICS framework. This shift has significant implications for global trade. By conducting trade in their local currencies, BRICS countries are directly challenging the dominance of the US dollar, which has long been the world's reserve currency. Over time, such bilateral agreements could weaken the dollar's influence on the global economy and pave the way for a more multipolar financial system. Why is this important? These agreements provide economic benefits to BRICS nations, such as cost savings. Eliminating the need to convert currencies reduces transaction costs and exchange rate risks. Sanction resistance. Using local currencies allows countries like Russia to continue trade despite international sanctions that limit their access to dollar-based systems. Strengthening local economies. Relying on local currencies helps stabilize domestic markets and fosters greater financial independence. Other examples of similar trends. South Africa and China have engaged in trade agreements where South African imports of machinery or electronics are increasingly settled in yuan. India and Russia have been using rupees and rubles for defense and energy deals, such as India's purchase of Russian crude oil. These examples highlight a broader trend among BRICS nations to establish alternative financial systems, potentially reducing the dominance of the dollar in global trade and finance. Digital currency innovations. The launch of China's digital yuan marks a bold step toward decentralizing global finance. By leveraging blockchain technology, BRICS aims to bypass Western financial systems, offering emerging economies an alternative to traditional dollar-based transactions, pushing for a global reserve currency. In 2023, BRICS announced plans to explore a potential common currency for member nations. While still in the early stages, such an initiative underscores their commitment to reducing dollar dependence. Challenges ahead. Despite their progress, BRICS faces significant challenges. The alliance must navigate U.S. pressure, tariff threats, sanctions, and diplomatic maneuvers from Washington remain formidable obstacles. Internal differences. BRICS. Nations have diverse economies and priorities. For instance, India maintains strong trade ties with the U.S., creating a complex balancing act within the alliance. China's role as a leader. As the largest economy within BRICS, China has firmly positioned itself as the de facto leader, leveraging its economic strength and strategic vision to shape the group's direction. Beijing's response to the Trump administration's tariffs was both measured and calculated, opting for a strategic approach rather than direct confrontation. While the U.S. pursued a combative and transactional stance, China emphasized cooperation, long-term planning, and multilateral collaboration to counterbalance the economic disruptions. Behind the scenes, China has been actively solidifying its leadership within BRICS through several key initiatives. Enhanced funding for BRICS initiatives. China has significantly increased its financial contributions to BRICS-specific programs, supporting projects that promote shared development goals, such as infrastructure, trade, and research and innovation across member states. Fast-tracking trade agreements. In a bid to strengthen economic ties, China has accelerated bilateral and multilateral trade agreements within the BRICS framework. These agreements aim to reduce barriers to trade, enhance market access, and foster economic integration among member nations. Investment in digital finance leadership. China's heavy investment in its digital yuan project underscores its ambition to dominate the future of global digital finance. By pioneering this initiative, China seeks to challenge the hegemony of traditional financial systems and establish the digital yuan as a preferred medium for cross-border transactions within and beyond BRICS. Expanding the Belt and Road Initiative, BRI. The Belt and Road Initiative remains a cornerstone of China's strategy to expand its global influence. By developing infrastructure, trade routes, and partnerships across Asia, Africa, the Middle East, and parts of Europe, the BRI not only enhances China's economic reach, but also strengthens its ties with emerging markets, including BRICS nations. This initiative facilitates smoother trade flows, greater connectivity, and deeper collaboration, further cementing China's role as a key driver of global development.